Greetings, everyone. I'm Dr. Beard, and I am the editor-in-chief of the Breaking Free from Nicotine monthly e-zine. Each month, we feature an organization or an individual who's working tirelessly to address health and tobacco-related disparities and inequities, in our communities. And today, I have with me Dr. Christopher Williams, a visionary in the realm of public health and the founder of Public Health Liberation. Um, Dr. Williams brings with him a wealth of experience and expertise and addressing health disparities, inequities, as well as advocating for social justice within the field of public health. His dedication to empowering marginalized communities has made a profound impact on the lives of many. And today we have the privilege and the opportunity of delving deeper into his work and the mission of public health liberation. Welcome, Dr. Williams. And first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with me here today. I have been waiting anxiously, bated breath to just kind of catch up with what has happened with public health liberation since you and I connected in 2021. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, you are the founder of Public Health Liberation. So I'd like to start by asking you, what inspired you to establish Public Health Liberation? And, what's its mission and its core objectives?
Yes, and thank you, Dr. Beard, for this opportunity to talk about my work, our work in public health liberation. And what really inspired my work was really two things. One, I am a researcher, public health researcher and educator. And through that work, I want to accelerate health equity. On the other hand, my community of practice where I live is in Washington, D.C., and much of my community of practice is in a neighborhood in Washington, D.C. that happens to be highly gentrifying, contains one of the greatest concentrations of Black poverty in this country, and working with them daily in terms of the challenges that they face. And it's not just a matter of, okay, there is this one issue that we need to resolve, say environmental racism. But it really is a whole host of issues around housing quality, around income inequality, around structural violence and racism, and the way in which government, landlords, folks in the community interact together. And sometimes the bad actors really perpetuate immense inequity. And we had, for many years, been on the front line of advocacy. And we had been doing a lot of things to address these issues as they sort of cropped up. And so on the environmental racism front, we appealed permits to pollute. We asked the city to monitor and mitigate harm from having industrial polluters in our neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We weighed in on the city's, what it's called the comprehensive plan, which covers everything from air quality to education to parks. And we formed our work groups to try to encourage the District of Washington, D.C. to really safeguard our health and our interests. So we were doing a lot of the work already. And we came together and recruited folks all across the world. We have members in outside the United States and Canada and Africa, because we felt that we needed not just to elevate our story and elevate the experiences, the lived experiences and everyday challenges of affected communities, but we in fact needed new approaches and new theories to understand why this is happening to us. And so public health liberation came out really of liberation, of the idea that we can try to organize academic discussion to reflect our experiences, what we're doing, and who we are. And so that was really sort of our goal with public health liberation, to bring our authentic selves to public health agenda setting and theory building.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And what I you're located in Washington, D.C. Is that correct?
We are located, the nonprofit is based out of Washington, D.C. And this city, the nation's capital, has some of the most acute disparities you will see anywhere in this country. Income inequality, health disparities, racial health disparities are difference of 20 years for our poorest neighborhoods and our wealthiest neighborhoods. If you look at income inequality, it has doubled and tripled over the last 10 to 15 years. If you look at the way in which economic policy is taking shape to exclude affordable housing in many large tracts of the city, and then to concentrate or flood luxury housing, driving up housing costs and precipitating even further redevelopment, making communities vulnerable to displacement, which is what we're seeing. Washington, D.C. is the #1 city for Black displacement in this country. And then what happens is that you have secondary effects. So the city identifies an area to redevelop. Folks have had stable housing in that area for a very long time, but then the landlord makes a calculus that maybe I could flip this and sell it to someone else and make a lot of money, so I'm not going to invest a whole lot in the building. And so what we've also seen is divestment. We've seen many public health and safety crises, because it's not just the pest issue, the cockroaches and the rats and the mice. And I talk with folks in my community of practice, and they're showing me pictures that they've taken of these rodents in their homes. But it's also the investment from public safety. And so the cameras stop working, the units are vacant, crime activity grows. And so we see all of these factors happening here in the nation's capital. And so what we said was that there's got to be more to understanding public health aside from just behavior and aside from just the social determinants of health. We've got to find a way to pull all of these under a single transdisciplinary umbrella that we call the public health economy. In other words, if your schools are segregated, in effect, if low-income students cannot graduate from high school, much less go on to college, if you are perpetuating intergenerational poverty amidst abundant resources, that is a part of the public health economy, given all that we know about education as a protective factor against all of the sort of health effects that we see down the line, and the health behaviors and the criminal propensity, all these things. So, but education is just a small piece of it. And so a lot of what we spend our time doing is understanding not just the education piece, not just the policy piece, but we are also looking at the oversight. So once you do get a law in place, is the government implementing the law? And that could be environmental oversight. In a lot of cases, what we're finding is that we We don't see where that's happening, right? So we get a mitigation plan on some environmental XYZ, but then when we ask the government to say, well, when did you do this, this, and this according to what the law says, they don't satisfy our FOIA request. And so then we go to the council and we say to the council at the oversight hearing each year, or even in between if we have issues, we saw this across, education or community development or what have you. Can you ensure adequate oversight of the legislative, of the executive agency? Because it doesn't appear that they're doing the job. Then what we also get is that you have a law that's passed saying that when we do planning in the district, it should be accompanied by an environmental impact assessment. In other words, when we build, we should know the consequences of what we're building. And it's not just air quality. We need to know about noise. We need to know about flooding. We need to really have an understanding of how this affects the environment where people sort of live, work, and play, as we like to say. Mm-hmm. And in our latest iteration of the comprehensive plan, the district did not do that environmental impact assessment. The legislature did not ask for it, and the revised comprehensive plan was able to go forward. So you have two branches of government that failed to follow the law. Mm. And because we know the health effects of what's happening to us and why, we then have to say, okay, what are our other options? And our other options is to go to the court and to argue before the court and to retain legal counsel. And so part of what public health liberation says is not just understanding and affecting the public health economy in real time, but it also says that we're not going to be centrally situated in anti-racism. Anti-racism is important. It is important to call out systems of injustices and oppression. But it's equally important to ask the question, what can we do about it within our locus of control? And that I think the idea of liberation in public health based on that definition of the word, there is a notion of public health liberation out there in the public health literature, which is that it's very different from what we intend. What we intend are really an arsenal of tools to help communities open up pathways to attenuate the health inequity. And that requires really transdisciplinary knowledge and synthesis. So I would like to think that what we're proposing is new and novel. And I think that it really requires greater attention in public health. Public health does a lot of research. We're very good at research. But what I don't think we do enough of is, one, understanding the public health economy, right? So I'll give you an example. In 2019, a 17-year-old shot a 16-year-old in an empty public housing unit across the street from me in my community of practice. DC is now experiencing one of a major crime wave, like many large U.S. cities, but it's much worse in the district. Mm. But this crime wave that's happening now is really due to system failures from years ago, such as what happened in 2019. So a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old. And so the first question is, well, education. Why weren't they in school? Well, as it turns out, last year in the District of Columbia, a third of ninth graders missed a third of the school year or more. And so that is a system failure because the district was inattentive to absenteeism and truancy for many years until it reached a crisis, right? So our advocacy is always on education, but that's not the only thing. And so, well, why was the unit empty and open? Well, it was empty and open because of the divestment that I mentioned earlier. So we're in a gentrifying neighborhood, so the housing authority decided that they wanted to redevelop this particular public housing community. So they weren't investing in it. And in fact, they were emptying it out. Well, that was leading to gang violence. And so they found this teenager in this unit because of, again, divestment. And then there's the question, well, the 17-year-old was arrested, but the U.S. attorney dropped the charges. So that's another system failure, which is that we saw the prosecution rate as low as really 30-something% here in the district. So not to speak specifically of this case, but what I will know is that in general, based on the prosecution rate, is that people were getting away with crimes, perhaps even murder in the district. And so we need a better way, we argue, of understanding this entire public health economy that accounts for really what is going on in terms of our community's lived experiences.
Oh, wow. Those are some important and big issues that you've just described under that umbrella. But, you know, one of the things that I admire you in public health liberation in terms of in terms of your strategy is that I know you've been very successful with the grassroots movement. You have a lot of community people that are in support of public health liberation. So your strategy is kind of like a bottom up rather than a top down. And I love that. So can you say more about that, Dr. Williams? Why did you choose that strategy? And maybe give us some examples of how it's working and, you know, just some lived experiences from that perspective.
So part of the reason why we chose it is because it's who we are. We are community minded. We are sort of the King legacy and King generation. You know, many folks in many community leaders in my community of practice were alive when Dr. King was alive, and they were inspired by his work, and they wanted to continue his work in their own way. But we have a collective sense of identity, and we are not just about me, what I can get out of it. And in fact, what we say is that at the heart of anarchy in the public health economy is basically too much self-interest. So part of the issue that research has often been criticized for is what they call the drive-by research. Like, you go into a community, you get your data, and you leave and you never come back. You don't even tell the community what findings you reached from your study. And so we want to sort of put that on its head and say, no, not only do we encourage you not to engage in instrumental use of a community, but we encourage you to be socially aligned with them, to live in the community where you are practicing, and to really understand those issues, and to be to form kinship. That is really what the key is the kinship with them, so that you help to interrupt the harm that's happening to them. Now, mind you, I have a doctorate at this point, and even before now, I knew the importance of low-income communities to be able to have someone like myself to come in and say, yeah, they gave you all a 200-plus page document and they want you to sign off on that. I'm going to spend my time so that I can give you information on what this document really says and whether or not it's good or bad for you. And part of it is the need to protect communities. They're not vulnerable for nothing. They're vulnerable because they're exploited. They're vulnerable because not enough folks stand up and say, do not harm them, stop harming them. And public health liberation goes a step further and says, not only will we tell you to stop harming us, we will look for every strategy to to keep you from harming our community now and in the future. And so it requires that we do a lot of non-traditional research in public health. We look at deeds, plots. We look at contracts. What does the contract say? We try to pursue something like redevelopment, for example. We're not just going to let them come in and wholesale displace an entire community. We're going to get as much information and fight back as much as we can about it. And it has not been displaced. I mean, they wanted to redevelop this neighborhood 10 years ago. But the community leaders have stood in the front, almost sort of the cranes are there sort of figuratively, and they are just saying, we are not going to let you knock down our community. And that's really what it takes. And it's a highly sophisticated way of dealing with the inequities in society and the drivers of those inequities. But we are very clear in what we want and that it needs to stop. And that what we encourage people who do this work to do is to really think beyond, well, what is my agenda as a researcher, as an educator, as a practitioner? How do I broaden what I see as the need and the intervention so that it goes beyond just what my particular subject matter is? That is a challenge, but I think that that's the only way we can break a lot of these cycles and these systems that are deepening, in some cases, the health inequity.
I love that, the collective identity. And I agree with you. I do community-based research as well. And I agree that when you're in the community, whether you live in the community or not, you have to be willing to be part of that community, to take on the persona of that community, and to know that you're not there to just get. You have an obligation to give back, and to share those results. And it's through that kind of relationship that we build trust and confidence in our communities. Because, we hear a lot that, African Americans don't participate in research. Well, there's a reason for that. And yeah, I think, and I agree with you that I think it belongs with us, to us first, to look at what we're doing and how we can, address that issue. I love community-based research, and I think, Dr. Williams, sometimes you're the student, and then sometimes you're the teacher. And when you go into communities, you're the student. And you need to understand that. So anyway, I don't want to get on that soapbox. We have about 6 minutes left. And so is there anything else you'd like our viewers to know about what you're doing? For instance, I know that you also, there's so many things you're doing, but you have a journal that you publish. So I don't know if you want to speak about that, or if there's something else that's coming up that you'd like to share with the viewers that maybe they can support you. So I would say, go ahead and just let us know.
Yeah, so we offer folks, members, an opportunity to publish their writings on our website. What we know is that it's often difficult to get published in a peer-reviewed journal. One, we see they want a lot of money these days. So they want, $1,500, $3,000 for you to publish an article in their journal. But we feel, again, it's our liberation philosophy, that we've got something important to say. And so we invite folks to submit through our website on the hub. It's a link at the top of the page. If folks would like to talk about their experiences or have writings or want to be able to support the building of this transdiscipline, the public health economy, one of the recent writings, and I do a lot of writings on there, is I took the idea of a lot of theories out there about power. What is power? How is it conceptualized? How is it operationalized? And I took that history, 50-some year history, and I said, well, this is how it applies to public health liberation. And so we really would like for folks to come into and be a member of Public Health Liberation if you share this vision of what public health is and can be. And then ultimately, in 10 years, we want to be able to have this as a standalone specialty. It's not exclusively within public health, because frankly, to be effective, we're going to have to drive down these disparities and to drive down this inequity. We're going to have to be in many more spaces. And that's just the reality. When they're putting together that economic plan for the city, where they're going to build and how and who's going to get what subsidies, we're going to need to be there. When they're talking about housing policy, we're going to need to be there. When they're talking about budgeting that they do every year, we need to be at the table. So we have to know more about what's happening in these other specialties. If folks are excited about that, I encourage them to consider joining Public Health Liberation. If you have an economic burden, I believe that as far as I know, we are the only national public health nonprofit focused on health equity that allows for free to low cost membership based on income. So many of the community leaders that I mentioned from public housing, they filled out a form and they got into the membership at no cost, because we want to be open, we want to be inclusive, and so that's what, if folks want to join Public Health Liberation, it's a way of life, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of being. We walk into every space with our communities behind us, with our ancestors behind us, with our ethics in front of us, and we lead with our ethics and our values. I think it's a fantastic organization, and we hope to do more and more, and we've been able to secure grants for our communities in terms of their capacity building. So we had a health coalition, for example, among low-income leaders. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, I don't think it's a great organization. I know it's a great organization.
Good.
And just kudos to you and your founding members, and all your members. The work that you're doing is so needed, it's so inspiring. It's great leadership. Over the last 3 years, I've watched you grow this organization. You are just a fantastic young man, and I'm so appreciative that you are willing to do this work, because I can imagine, how tiring it can be, but the reward is when you get to see your community thrive, and survive all these different tactics that we see, the issues that you talk about on the umbrella. And so I would like to encourage all of you who are listening to this interview, visit the website. I mean, today we just touched on just a minute amount of what Public Health Liberation is doing and has done. And so for the full story, please go to the website. And if you are interested in joining in the e-zine here, we have a link that you can click on. We want to make it easy for you to go. And if you're not able to join right now or commit to support it in any way right now, just give a shout out to Chris and let him know that you're with him. And Dr. Williams, thank you again for your time, spending your time here with us today. And I look forward to the future great work that you will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.